The die is cast, ladies and gentlemen. It is Aussieverse coming back at you. And it is OmniBeau and Sharif, as always. Thank you very much for joining us and spending your hard-earned time watching a segment here. And tonight we have, for the very first time, it has been well overdue, I was going to say Darren Zen Close, but I read Daz. Darren Zen Close, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Killeroo himself. How are you, Daz?
I'm good. How you guys doing?
Oh, mate.
Good,
Great.
thank you. Welcome to Aussieverse.
Yes.
If you want to know who Darren Zen Close is, then you've come to the right place. If you already do know who he is, well, then you probably already have these links that I'm about to give you. And if you don't, go check out his artwork, because we have his Instagram handle right here at Killeroo. We also have his Facebook page at Killeroo. And we have more to show you in just a little bit, some more visuals. Go check it out. It is some great stuff. Darren, you, sir, have been around for a very long time. I have seen you at all the cons for many, many years. I have known you for quite a little while now, but it is your first time on Aussieverse. So please tell the audience who you are and what it is that you do.
Sure. Well, as you say, I've been doing this for quite some time. I started probably in the Australian scene. I had a website called Comx.com. This is all pre-Facebook, pre-social media, and it was essentially a message board. And through that message board, I met a lot of other Australian creators and artists and so forth. And yeah, over time, I saw what they were doing, and they were making comics, and I decided that I wanted to join in on the fun, and mainly collaborated with a lot of those artists to make my Killeroo books.
Yeah, man. And I've read quite a bit of it, and it's really cool, man. But you've got a lot of Killeroo out there. So if people hear about it more tonight and they want to get into it, how much is available out there to still be collected?
There's probably, I would guess almost 24 books. Might be a bit less than that. I started out, like I said, in around 2001, and I published a couple of books, Killeroo Book 1 and Book 2, and they were kind of me just testing the waters, trying out the whole publishing scene, and I hadn't really defined the Killeroo character at that point, so I was basically approaching artists and saying, do you have an idea for a Killeroo story or a story about a big kangaroo guy? And whatever they had in mind, I kind of just let them run with it. So there's not a lot of structure or continuity between those two books. It was just sort of a big, tough kangaroo guy and the artists doing their interpretation of it.
Yeah.
It wasn't until about 2010 that I published Killeroo Scars, which essentially is a origin story. It's basically the reboot of the character for a definitive character that I've been publishing books from that point on, and sort of like his life story starting there.
Gotcha. So if somebody was to pick up a random issue of Killeroo, would they need to read the other ones prior to that?
I don't know that they would need to. Whenever someone asks, I generally point them to the Scars book. But I think it's relatively straightforward. Like, it's a big mutant kangaroo hybrid sort of thing, and it just kind of goes from there. So I don't know. I hadn't thought about that. I do have a timeline that I publish in the back of each issue to sort of show which issue came first, because I don't really do issue numbers, because I find I can't publish enough books to maintain a monthly or even a quarterly schedule. So I think once you start putting issue numbers on your books, you're really constrained by that. So I tend to do it as a series of one-shots, and I just kind of like Hellboy. Hellboy has a lot of different stories, but they're not sequentially numbered per se.
Yep. Fair enough, man. Sharif.
which makes it easier for new readers because you can jump in at any point in time, especially if the stories are non-sequential or because you don't need to read anything prior to what you're gonna read.
Yeah, they're largely self-contained stories. So, yeah.
And you've worked with many different artists over the years. Do you have different artists for each book depending on their availabilities and your relationships, or do you have a single artist that does the main book? How does that work?
It's generally been a variety of different artists for each book. I'll occasionally get approached by an artist and say, I'd like to do a Killeroo story, or I'll approach an artist and say, I'd love to get a Killeroo story illustrated by you. And then we just sort of figure out what each other's schedules are like, how long they need to draw, and similar with writers. If writers come on board and they want something or they have an idea for a story, there's a lot of Killeroo lore that's all contained in here, but I don't really have it listed or it's not available in any particular book. So people will pitch a story to me and I'll go, okay, that works up until this point where it doesn't gel with the character. And we try and sort of make the two merge so their idea gets through without the character being changed from the status quo or what's been established about him before.
Cool. So let's get people into this. So if someone asked me, what is Spider-Man basically about? I know that you've given us who Killeroo is, but if someone said to me what's Spider-Man about, I'd say it's a guy with some spider-like powers that goes out and fights crime while also being really poor and trying to have some sort of a life as a human, which takes a back seat because of his responsibilities being Spider-Man, always messed that up. What sort of synopsis, I guess, overall would you give Killeroo?
I guess one of the things that I try to keep consistent throughout each book is I don't consider Killeroo's universe, if you like, to be that much different from ours insofar as he's essentially kind of a monster. He wouldn't fit in to our reality. Like he'd be seen as a cryptoid, like the Loch Ness Monster or Bigfoot or something like that. So like I'll have people that pitch me stories where, oh yeah, I've got Killeroo and he's drinking in a bar and he's catching up with these mates. And I'm like, no, he can't exist in that scenario. Like he wouldn't be tolerated. He'd be too different. So I try to keep it grounded in a kind of reality, and essentially a small circle of people know who he is and that he's real, but he's kind of an urban legend to the wider world. Like it's like Bigfoot or the Loch Ness Monster. It's like, is there proof that he exists? That sort of thing. In terms of who he is, he's the idea I had was that he's essentially a military experiment. So he was born in a lab sort of created from genetic material and designed to be, I guess, the perfect warrior or the perfect soldier specific to Australian conditions. You know, the hot weather, the arid landscape, being particularly suited to that sort of arena. But the military then decided to kill the project, and the scientist that had basically brought him up and was told to exterminate him basically let him out, and he escaped from the test facility and kind of was raised essentially by some Aboriginal communities, and they kind of saw him as possibly something to do with the dream. What's the phrase?
Dreamtime?
Dreamtime, yeah. So kind of like, is he an Aboriginal legend? Is he something created from that? And I do weave a little bit of mythology through, like, is he or isn't he? But essentially, he's a creature that doesn't fit. Like he can't be with other kangaroos because they would look at him as strange and different, and he couldn't be with them. And much like humans, can't really relate to this big monster thing. So he has a kinship to the Aboriginal people and the land. So there's been several stories where, mining companies have displaced an Aboriginal community in order to build a mine, and he's gone in and smashed the mine up to sort of protect them. He's kind of an environmental protector without, calling himself that, I guess. But essentially, he's just trying to get by, and to do that, he has to live fairly remotely so that he's not seen or hunted down as some kind of monster. And it's just him getting by for a lot of that.
Yeah, that's cool, man. So you ended up making, I think it was, time goes by really quickly for me, and everything just seems like yesterday. But I remember you made, was it Young Rufus?
Yes.
Yeah, which was obviously him growing up.
Yeah, essentially the time that passes in the Scars book that I mentioned, which is the origin story, it really flies past several years. It's sort of like he escapes from the military facilities, only a little Joey, and then we zoom forward into the sort of 5-10 years from that point on, and he's like fully grown and more human. But there's like that little space in the middle there where he was just sort of growing up, and I created with some assistance. I think it was John Somariva when he worked on Killeroo Book 1.
Yep.
He had created a bunch of little sketches that were much more, I guess, chibi is the phrase. It was before chibi was a thing. But, he created this little image of essentially a little adolescent kangaroo character. And I've always had, over the years, when I'm at conventions, parents will come up and say, is this Killeroo book suitable for my kids? And I always have to say, no, it's really not. Lots of violence and profanity and so forth, so it's not. And it always bothered me that I couldn't have something to cater to that particular market. So, yeah, I ended up fleshing out a little A5 book of collected stories where it's essentially young Rufus as kind of a Joey/child, and he's basically hanging around in the bush with a bunch of other Aboriginal children, and kind of the adventures that they get up to, and finding caves, and just kid stuff, but obviously with the one difference.
Yeah.
And it wasn't all that successful, unfortunately. I think kids' books is a very niche market, and it was either I think maybe the structure of having different connected stories doesn't work so well. Like generally kids' books, there's one artist and it's one consistent look all the way through, whereas I had about 5 or 6 different creators involved. So it's a nice little book. I think it works well, but it's probably hasn't been as successful as I'd hoped.
Fair enough. Well, I guess you live and learn. You can maybe always do a young Rufus that is a consistent book. Well, who knows? That brings me to your latest Kickstarter. Now, people have been waiting for this one for a long time. I'm sure you've been in communication with all of your backers. Yep. It's been a while, but now you've finally got it here, and that is on the opposite end of young Rufus.
Yes.
Old man Rufus. Let's go take a look at that.
Yes, I've got. These are the first copies that have come through. I got a whole bunch of different covers from different artists. And that one's by Jamie Johnson.
Jamie Johnson, yeah, man.
That one's by Jason Paulos.
Ah, Jason, yeah, right.
And this one's from an international artist, Edwin J. Arosa.
Oh,
I really liked his take on the character.
Yeah, man. I don't know that artist, but that's killer. Roo.
And of course, then the first one this is a Mark Sexton cover.
What's your favourite cover, Sharif?
That last one.
Last one?
Last-
This one?
Yeah,
Standing
the one
edition?
on the clip. On the clip, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so Mark was actually, I don't know if you're familiar with Mark, but he, back in the 90s, he produced a book with a co-creator called Bug and Stump.
Yes.
Which was kind of a fun book.
Yes, I do remember that. I had one of those once.
But Mark's gone on to be the storyboard artist for Mad Max Fury Road, Thor, Black Panther. Like, he's a very big storyboard artist for a lot of big budget Marvel and other films. So I was very lucky to get a cover out of him for the Old Man Rufus. But essentially, much like, as you said, there's like a young version of Rufus. The artist of Scars, Ryan Wilton, had done quite a few sketches throughout the course of that book, and one of them was, I think the movie Gran Torino had come out, where you got like a grumpy Clint Eastwood kind of character.
Love that movie.
And he did a few sketches of what Killeroo would look like. Is that in that kind of frame? And again, I always looked at that and I thought, that's cool. I might have to revisit that. And then, of course, Mark Millar did that classic Wolverine Old Man Logan story, which essentially becomes the Logan movie. And I thought that was just a perfect idea to move forward into the future to about the year 2050 and what Australia would look like at that point after some nuclear strikes. And, you got that post-apocalyptic feel coupled with kind of like Judge Dredd mega city kind of stuff, and mixing all of that together. And it just, I mentioned before how I try to keep things grounded in much like our reality, but setting in the future and after nuclear strikes, it opens up a lot more things, like more mutant animals from radiation and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's kind of fertile ground to be working on. And Ryan Vella is the artist for this particular story.
Ryan Vella, yeah, good guy, yeah.
And he's mainly done, I think, lots of black and white kind of indie underground kind of comics, whereas this is, full gloss color stuff, which I don't think he's used to. And it's a really interesting mix of styles, and I think it turned out really well. I'm anxious for people to read it, because now that I've got the printed books, I'm about to start shipping out so many copies of this, and I'm looking forward to people being able to read it.
So is your book, for the people that haven't gotten the Kickstarter, are they going, because I know that your books are available at some places like All Star Comics in Melbourne, which I always love seeing on that Australian shelf. Is Old Man Rufus going to be available elsewhere?
It will be. I've got orders from several stores, including All Star, Impact Comics, and D's Comics both in Canberra. And I think Fats Comics in Brisbane as well.
Yeah,
They'll be
we love
getting a whole
Fats
bunch of those soon. But my focus is to get all the copies to the backers first. So it'll take a while before I've fulfilled every order, and I want to make sure they get it before people can buy it from the store, because that always annoyed me when I back Kickstarters, that I could have ended up buying off the shelf and got it before everyone else. It never seemed right to me.
Yeah, totally agree with you. I've got that same situation with one Kickstarter that I've been waiting for over a year, that I saw solicited in the normal previews, and I'm like, oh man, I better get it first, and I don't think I'm going to. Sharif, who are we sponsored by?
Comx.
That's right. And if you're not sure who Comx is, ladies and gentlemen, they are Australia's #1 community that supports local talent, all of Australia's writers, artists, inkers, all that sort of jazz, right? And if you go to their website, you can buy all these comics as well. Probably not Killeroo to be contradictive there, but they do have one flat shipping rate, which is an absolute fantastic sales pitch for me anyway. You can find all sorts of things like Detective Budgie and Spedsy's Sluggish and Battle for Bustle and all sorts of different comics there. And if you're not sure who they are, I'll show you right now.
This show is sponsored by the Comx Shop. Check out comx.cx for all things Comx and find out what Comx is all about. We hope you enjoyed the show.
And now it's that time of the program where we go take a look at some of this Killeroo stuff. I need to share the screens here. The first one we're going to have a look at is... Why can't I? Oh, there we go, that one. So let's scroll to the top here. So take us through some of these books that we've got here, man.
Sure. So this is killeroo.com, where I sell most of my mail-ordered books. You can see Old Man Rufus is there as a pre-order. So people who have purchased that as a pre-order will be getting their copies pretty soon. But yeah, essentially all of the books that I still have in print are available to purchase here. And for the ones that I don't have in print, like the Gang Wars books, I have very limited stocks of those. In fact, I think most of those are digital. So you can buy digital comics through this website as well. And there's a few bundle deals available, such as 5 issues of Gang Wars, rather than buying individual copies. Again, I think they're sold out, but I do have, if you look at, I think the product section, there's like printed comics and digital comics, and you can get the digital ones as well. Yeah, across the top there's text, there's digital, just below that.
Oh, comic books.
Yeah. Just the digital one there.
Digital. There we go.
Yeah. So all of the books that are out of print, you can still buy digitally.
Mm.
Oh, and man, who did that cover? Township Mine.
That's by, I never remember her name. She's changed her name a couple of times.
Oh, okay, fair enough. That's a good cover.
She's a fantastic artist. She actually just finished working on Mortal Kombat 2. She was involved in some of the, I think, the production design, concept design artwork.
Oh, wow.
For that new film coming out. So,
yep. And I recognise a homage when I see one.
Ah, yes. Yeah, so that's for the crossover book that was my first Kickstarter book. And I'm about to launch a sequel to that book, actually.
Oh, cool.
In a couple of weeks.
Sharif, just looking at these ones without knowing anything, which one attracts you out of all of these if you were to pick one up?
Was it the top right, the Stones of...
Yeah, good luck.
That one.
How do you pronounce that, Darren?
I believe it's Karen Girinja.
Yeah, man.
That one sort of delves into a bit of the mystical side of the comic.
Cool.
And also deals with, it follows, they're actually in order. So Gang Wars happens and then the Stones.
All right.
He has, the character develops some PTSD from the Gang Wars period. So he's kind of broken in the Stones book, and that's how he's able to pull himself out of a mental hole that he was, and recover from the trauma that he suffered in the previous books.
And you got a free comic here?
Yes, Scars. Scars is always free to read. I think if you click on that, it's should link to the PDF. And yeah, you're free to grab that, download it, and read it at your leisure.
Oh wow, that's pretty cool.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, I like to say the first taste is free.
Look at that. Look at that. That's awesome. We'll just quickly go through this just so people can have a look at this art.
Yep.
Man, it is so good looking.
I have a really talented group of colorists. They're all Indian, actually. They're part of a studio called Bees Studio, and I've used them for several books now. And they were able to produce, that glorious sunset kind of image, and the colours, very vibrant colours in those books.
Checking that out.
I don't know if you're showing. I think all I can see
is the.
Oh, what? Sorry, I've been scrolling for like a minute here, going down the comic. Hang on.
Yeah, sure. Just enjoy it by yourself.
Oh my god, how embarrassing! I wish you let me know. There we go. So I just went. What I was laughing at and going awesome was this bit.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Savage.
Yes. So when people say, parents say, "Is this suitable for kids?" I have to sort of, yeah, not really.
Let's go back to a couple of other pages that I thought I was sharing before.
Yeah, so you can see that adolescent period there, which is where the young Rufus story takes place.
Mm.
And that's the picture that I was mentioning before. Look at that. All right, let's go back down now. The colouring is just beautiful.
Yeah, it's the same studio that I was talking about with the cover.
Scar-defined Rufus. All right. Now we've taken a look at that. Let's see here. We also have
Darren, do all of the titles have the same page counts, or do they vary?
No, it does vary. There's some that are 80 pages long. The Semper Fidelis book was about 64 pages long, but generally I like to have a story that's between 30 to 40 pages. That's kind of the sweet spot I find in terms of getting an artist to commit to a nice, fair chunk of story where they're not going to get bored and want to do something else. And it becomes, I'm kind of that guy that likes the old DVDs and Blu-rays mainly for the extras. So whenever I produce a book and the story is like 30 pages, I like to make that like a 40-page book and put a lot of the behind-the-scenes sketchbook stuff and so forth in the back as well.
what we're looking at here is Killeroo's Instagram. As you can see, plenty of great artwork there. If you're only about the art, go check that out. The link will be in the description. There we go. Dean Rankin. I saw him at the AstroCon the other day, but he doesn't know who I am, so he didn't say hi. but I know you. Next one that we'll show off now is your Facebook. So Killeroo has his own Facebook. 1.4 likes. That's pretty cool, man. Look at that being printed.
Yeah, there's the video that Jeffrey's Printing sent me of the book on the press. I don't really update the if I find funny videos of kangaroos, I put that there as well.
Killeroo 2024.
Yeah, those are kind of tentative dates of conventions I've got planned and some Kickstarters that I'm planning to run.
Well, Look at what that says. Sharif, how do you feel about possibly including an omnibus?
Sweet.
I said this to you about a year or two, Darren, and that is as soon as an omnibus comes out, mate, that'll be day one buy for me.
It's just a matter of trying to find a place that I can print it where it's like I think most of books that size, they require a pretty hefty minimum quantity to print. And it's good to know that I've got like maybe 10 or 15 people that want to buy an omnibus, but if I have to print 1,000 of them, it becomes less viable, if you know what I mean.
I'll help you sell them. I'll help you sell them. Don't worry.
We'll put the word out.
Yeah. So it's something I'd love to do. I love those big deluxe hardcovers, but it's just a matter of making it cost effective where I don't, it's not going to be much point if I'm saying, okay, here's a 250 page omnibus and I have to sell it at $500 because that's my unit cost. It's not practical. Even you guys wouldn't buy it at that price.
No, that's completely fair enough, man.
Yeah.
If anybody else out there has an idea about how we can get an omnibus made cost effective for the audience and for Darren to obviously not be out of pocket and maybe even make a little bit of coin from it, because let's be real, that's his job, then please let us know at Instagram at _Aussieverse. We can also hit us up on Facebook at Aussieverse for Life. We do try to upload daily on TikTok at Aussieverse, and you can also go check out our graphic designer and thumbnail creator and everything beautiful about Aussieverse that she does, A51_designs. That brings us to the end of the segment there, end of the show. But the last segment that I do want to say is that you are currently running a Kickstarter that is nothing to do with Killeroo. What is that? And while you talk about it, I'll bring it up.
Sure. Because I've become quite successful in running Kickstarters, I've actually started doing work for other creators who essentially want either for their comic Kickstarter to succeed or to do better than their previous results, because it's something I've become quite an expert at. But so it's essentially a side hustle, if you like. So I might make my comics and do my day job, but also on the side I'm helping other creators launch their books. And Greener Pastures is a comic book from the 1990s by artist Tim McEwen. And he's looking to relaunch the series. He's got several issues planned that he's looking to publish this year, like quite a few. I think might be 6 or 7 more issues. But this one is his relaunch of the character. And he's got an amazing list of guest artists they've all penciled a page for this story, and Tim's inked them. So you can see there's a page by John Somariva. There's one by Ashley Wood. I think the next one is Marty Abel. And there's a page by Dave Sim. There's a page by Nicholas Scott. Some pretty big names. Louis Joyce. Lots of big names, not just from Australia, but some abroad as well.
Now, what blows me away is the fact that in my first pile of comics that I ever got as a kid at 9 years old, in it was Greener Pastures #1.
Wow.
And I was 9 years old, and I fell in love with the character, and I never got to finish the series. So this is my opportunity now to go get all 8 issues. And for those that don't know what it is exactly, let's see here. Greener Pastures is the story of a lovable stud bull, Trevor Bovis, who in a fit of unexpected enlightenment in 1997 decided that there must be more to life than eating grass all day and having his way with the heifers all night. So he left his farm in rural Australia to attend university in Sydney, where he made friends with an inept but earnest political activist named Colin McEwen. Yeah, I think I pronounced that right. And his hedonistic flatmate Caesar. Adventure and hilarity, of course, ensued. And what drew me to this comic as a kid, which still does now, I think, is the fact that you're reading the first few pages of issue 1, and it shows all these cows just being cows, eating the grass, doing what cows do. And then all of a sudden, the farmer gets a knock on his door, and he opens it, and who's standing there? It's the cow on his 2 legs, and he goes, don't quote me, I don't know the exact words, but he basically turned around and goes, sick of being a cow. Just not going to do it anymore. I'm pretty sure I'm smart enough now to just hang out with you guys. And that's not enough for him. He then goes out and gets education and a job, and it's just a really great premise. I really, really enjoyed it. And I highly recommend you go check it out.
If you scroll down just a bit on that page, just a bit further. There, free comic. Do you see that before the John Sommariva page?
Oh, yeah.
Free comic. Much like the Scars book that you were looking through before. Anyone who's interested in learning more, issue 1's right there, free for people to read.
Oh, wow.
And yes, the whole series of 1 to 8 is available through that Kickstarter. There you go. And there's several reward levels where Tim will draw on a blank variant cover for you. You can even commission him to draw your favourite character, like Deadpool or whoever that might be.
So in the year of the... Sorry.
You're right.
I was going to say, in the year of the death of Superman and Batman Nightfall and all of these dark times, here was a happy book about, look, see, knocks on the door. Sorry, I'm really bored. May I come in? And the farmer's like, what the hell? This is my bull. What's he doing here? And he's like, come in and have some tea. And it really is funny. It's really, really a great story.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to scroll through it all just so you guys can go get the download.
And I can give you, Tim probably won't like it, but I'll give you an exclusive. There is a crossover in the works between Killeroo and Greener Pastures.
Awesome.
In fact, it's already been drawn. I think it's going to be part of a crossover book of collected stories with him crossing over with many other Australian books. But the Killeroo story is done. So whenever Tim decides that he wants to publish that one, that's when you'll see it.
Oh, man, that's fantastic.
Oh.
Sharif, you got any questions for our guest before we head off?
No, I'm just blown away by that last exclusive. You heard it here first.
Tim won't be happy, but there you go.
All right, some quick little questions now. First answer that comes to your head. Daz, Marvel or DC?
Marvel.
Who's your favourite superhero?
Probably Spider-Man, I'd say.
Who's your favourite supervillain?
I'm hesitant to say Venom, but probably Venom.
What's wrong with Venom, man?
Well, it's just the obvious choice, isn't it?
If you could
Actually,
put Killeroo...
I should probably go back and revise my favourite character, because the only comic book that I started collecting back in the 90s and I still buy it now is Savage Dragon.
Yeah, I knew it. I was going to say that. I knew that about you.
It was just when you asked me Marvel first, I just went straight to Marvel.
I've never read Savage Dragon, but I've known about him my entire life. And I bought the first hardcover collection of all of it. And the second one has come out, and I need to get that because I want to do Savage Dragon, what I'm doing with Spawn, and that is get about 5 books or so and then just read it all. Yeah. Last question of the show. If I said to you, what is Aussieverse, what would your answer be?
Couple of blokes that I'm talking to right now.
So very true, but incorrect. Sharif, what is Aussieverse?
What? For life.
For life. That is right. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us today. Darren will be back. He has not said that he will, but I'm going to make him come back. Thank you very much, Darren, for joining us today, mate. I really appreciate you reaching out. Let's get those Killeroo sales up, ladies and gentlemen. Catch you soon.
Thanks, guys.